The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie.
Morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm quite well. I actually really love how that coffee cup matches your jacket today.
Oh, it does really match today.
Yeah, it's such a nice, beautiful palette. I like it.
You know what? I love these cups. If people are wondering, I use these a lot in the episodes. This is not something where I went to a store and just looked for a cute cup. This was my mother's side of the family. When they cleaned out my grandmother's house, who I knew as Nanny, they were left behind in the kitchen. These are Denby British stoneware from like the 70s and 80s. So if anybody's looking for good stoneware, classic.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Denby. Yeah, this is called Gypsy Rose. That's the design, the flower. They call it Gypsy Rose. So anyway, but I love using them. Today, Jamie, today's letters. We've been waiting for one of the letters in this episode.
And to me, honestly, just even that this survived, even that this came into your possession, it to me, it's one of the greatest, like, coolest things to happen so far, and we're only on like season 2, so these are fun little coincidences. But however,
this is the letter. When you visited, you held this letter.
This was the letter I held.
This is the letter that you held.
See, because I do remember the one about the fire.
Right.
That one I got to see too.
Yeah.
And experience that just such unique handwriting. The chicken scratch. But yes, so like this was a cool, like when I finally figured out what like happened and what was going on, I just was like, this is a great story. This is a great story. Yeah, this will be a good one today. But because we do have 5 pieces of correspondence today.
Yes. 6, yeah.
6 pieces of correspondence. So that's always fun. But let's do a little recap of what we did last week. So last week was 2 letters. Two of Sweetie's bigger letters, and just such great stories about some conquest that she's having, some connections she's making,
people she's cultivating,
but we got to see such a different Sweetie from who first came to where we're at is Hatboro, because she was a little lonely.
Yep.
She wasn't really looking for connections, but she really didn't have any.
Right.
And now she's like, and we got to see last week that she's helping people out in Doylestown. She's helping the Rieselmans cut flowers. You know, her and Lou are like, getting into the antique business. And then amidst all this, little Louis is growing up and she's, also taking care of him in the house. And her life is incredibly full.
Yeah.
Right now, like I think she's at a really, really wonderful place, So we were coming to the end of the year.
Yep.
We're getting to the end of 1950. It's just crazy. Like we've been with her for like 10 years now, right?
We have since 41. Yeah.
So, and it's just today's gonna be such a little treat.
Today's a treat of an episode. Last episode, as Jamie was saying, we covered all of October 1950. This episode is going to cover all of November of 1950. And next week is going to be the only letter from December. So by the end, from 2 weeks from now, for the listeners that are tuning in every single week, we're going to be in 1951 and heading into further into this new decade in the whole grand scheme of things, I guess we could say. But yeah, Jamie, so exciting. People will know why we're so excited for this letter when you hear this letter. So, but we're not starting with that one letter. It's going to come up number 2. So, to get things ready, to set the stage for the letter we've been waiting for, we're going to start with Sweetie. And here we are on November 17th of 1950. County Line Road, Hatboro, Pennsylvania, November 17th, 1950. Dear Mama, Papa, Jeanne, Sister, Frank, and Florence, I am sorry to let Bill's birthday creep up on me without getting a card off in time, but will send it along with this letter and my best wishes to you today and every other day. I bought the card and had it nearly ready to go, and as usual have let other pressing things occupy my mind and thoughts until the day has arrived, and so my card will as usual arrive somewhat late. Typical of me, but just the same we wish a happy birthday to Bill, with many happy returns. We have been having some fairly nice weather, a cold snap now and then, but we really cannot complain. We have heard of the cold weather from Chicago on out in your direction, and I have been worrying about Mama and Papa working too hard in the cold weather, getting the garage built for the new Ford. How is it coming? I hope it is nearing completion, and that you'll soon have time to sit and relax a little between babies. I got myself by the scruff of the neck and got me upstairs and cleaned out the guest room. I laid some boards down beyond the flooring so that I could push everything back and give us some more room in the center, and rearranged some things, cleaned out some stuff that we no longer use, and gave some things to the neighbor who is practically destitute for working clothes, and baby clothes, and everything else. She told me she was down to her last $50, and still has a long way to go to get the greenhouse completed before bitter weather sets in. So I loosened up on some of the hoard, and gave her a few things we could get along without storing longer. I'm going to get at the downstairs on Monday, I think, pending a letter from Jeanne, which I still hope will arrive within the next day or two. Optimistic? The upstairs is a regular antique store now, and we are considering getting a phone installed and running an ad in the local paper and sell some of the pieces, and in getting a people here, we'll gradually establish ourselves. I put everything out on display, tacked up the pictures and prints and old frames, put out our Venetian glassware, our carriage lamps, the chairs, bureau, and just everything. We have been wondering what the strike has done to upset Frank's routine. Remembering how he manned the switchboards in the one several years ago, I've been wondering if he is again pushing plugs, and if so, surely do wish I could partake in a 3- or 4-way hookup. In case such is the case, you could call me at Hatboro 2770, which is Mrs. Rieselman's phone. She'd come after me at any time, I'm sure, if it didn't get billed to her phone, and since I'm home most all the time, I'd love to talk to Mama and Papa and Frank. Well, just anybody who had a phone. I haven't heard from Frank and Maida for such a long time. The last news I'd had from them was that Papa wrote of Susie's electrocardiograph reading, and that they were planning a visit that they never made in October. Susie is about ready to celebrate her 5th birthday on Helen Frances's birthday. Maybe we will hear about her party.
This is cool because we get to see kind of like what the phone system was like, at the beginning.
Yep.
And it's really weird. She's like, her number's Hatboro
2770.
2770 Hatboro. So you just get up on the phone and you're like, ding, ding, ding. And some lady's like, hello, dude, you need to call Hatboro 2770, please.
Yep. Yeah, we're starting to assign numbers because remember, my dad did that one short that explains how the old phones worked that were phased out in the 50s, basically, where you just get the operator and they'd say, connect me to this person. And then that's it. But we have the beginning of the numbers, and the systems that you needed the location, which leads to, I hope everybody knows this old jazz band standard. If you don't, you have got to look it up. It is one that is still played to this day as a standard of the time. And because it's from our state, Jamie, if you don't know this, this is homework. You must listen. Do you know what the song is?
I do.
What's the song?
I'm not, no. I'm not musical. Allison, you do it.
So the theme goes like this. I'm going to sing you some of the themes so everybody understands. This is how much you should know. It goes da 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 da. Pennsylvania 6 5000. The song's called
Yeah.
Pennsylvania 65000. Now, the greatest irony of this song is it's for a hotel in New York. That's not actually, like, you're not connecting to anybody in Pennsylvania. It has to be one of the most famous phone numbers from this era, is Pennsylvania 65000. So if you have, if anybody has any relatives, especially if they're in like middle school, high school jazz band, I guarantee you across the country, they're still playing this song. But it's the best way to remember how phone numbers were back then. So when we see this Hatboro number, it doesn't really fit the tune for Hatboro 2770. But it just makes me think of Pennsylvania 65000. So I hope everybody knows it.
2770. No, it doesn't.
Oh yeah, we gotta figure out a new thing for it. Yeah, but yeah, so great. You know, we start off right here in November. Just going, I'm gonna open up my book here to reference. Fairly nice weather. We'll see if that lasts.
Right.
Spoiler for next week. Next week's episode. And then she's talking about rearranging. They're trying to get like kind of a little storefront going up in the attic. Like, she's getting this figured out. Like, you're gonna have people over. You know, maybe
that's what they seem like they're gonna do. They like want to have a store.
Yeah.
And I mean, they have that whole unfinished room upstairs where she likes to type. She can't do that in the wintertime. So, that seems kind of cool to me, but then it also, I'm like, people are in my house. No.
Yeah. It's in the attic. Like, you have to go through the house to get to the attic.
With the way that they have that, and this is what, like, my first house that we bought, part of it was an apartment for Depression era folks. And so there was a place in the wall where you could see they clearly had a door at some point. So they could probably on the outside put a stairwell. Yeah. That they could then have people come in if she didn't want people to come through her house, because I wouldn't want people to come through my house. But this doesn't seem to be anything that she's considering. She's putting it up, and they have a lot of space up there, and so they have all their treasures up there.
Yep.
And that's how they make the money, is they got to sell them. Although we learned from our last letter, she really likes to hold on to stuff.
Yeah, she does. She's like, but I really like it, especially chairs.
Especially chairs.
It's always chairs. It's always Dad's like, I have so many chairs. Like, he inherited a ton of them. So as these chairs get described, I'm sure he's going to be like, oh, I have that chair. Eventually, Lou made her part with some of them because they'd be replaced by more chairs that she really, really liked. So,
well, she sold chairs before that. She just went out and turned around and bought another chair.
Yeah. She loves those chairs. Yeah,
I know that one at your dad's house, the one that he had reupholstered with the gold roses on it. Oh my gosh, I love that chair. It's so beautiful. Yeah. I mean, she had really good taste.
She did. Yeah. But I doubt.
And whenever we talk about being picky, like me and my husband, he'll be like, well, you're really picky. Well, I picked you. I've got really good taste. Well, I married you, Lou. So,
it's good.
But yeah, so they're starting to like kind of she really is like slowly breaking into that, isn't she?
Yep.
We got some happy birthdays. Oh, and then we learned that Chester, well, we do know that Chester was building a garage. He was moving dirt. And some of his last letters, he said he moved some dirt in the yard and he was building a garage. So they're still working on that.
Yep. But heading into the second part of the same letter. Florence, can't you find time to drop us a letter? I'd like to hear about KM's school days and how R gets along without her. I can imagine he gets quite lonesome during the day and has a hard time entertaining himself. I've written twice about exchanging Christmas presents this year and haven't yet heard any final decision. Have you? I wish that somebody would write me about that. I've a notion to borrow a page from Sister's book and drop her a polite little postal card. That is all I ever get from her, and not until I've delayed writing for some time. Louis is getting into the spirit of Christmas already and is deciding and redeciding what he wants from Santa Claus. He said the other day, if he could have this and this, I've forgotten right now what it was, he'd let Santa Claus decide what else he should have. We saw Santa Claus on TV the other night as he was interviewed on one of the programs, but by some accident his wig and hat slipped, and as he was guffawing in Santa fashion, his black hair showed, and both Lou and I were waiting for Louis to make some mention of it, but somehow it slipped by him. However, I believe I wrote you that last year when I took him to the Sunday school party, he looked Santa over carefully and then came back to me and said, his whiskers are just rag. It took some tall explaining on my part. This cowboy stuff is just about run into the ground as far as I'm concerned, and notice his speech and mannerisms are copied from the tough boys on TV. Have found, though, that taking his guns and attire have proven quite effective punishment when other measures fail. He has decided he is tired of Sunday school, and I'm having some trouble in getting him to go. Since rally day, when they promoted the kids and his favorite teacher left, he just hasn't any time for it at all. He says all they do is sing the same songs, nothing new, and though he is of the same age as the kids, he regards them as babies, since the older ones have been graduated. He says he doesn't care to go at all, and I must find some new persuader to make him renew his interest. I shall have to cut this short if it is to get into the morning's mail and not lay over, so shall cut it a little short. I keep looking every day in the mailbox just in case something should happen that somebody might break down and write. I did have and enjoy very much a letter from Mama that I quickly answered. I'd been sort of worrying about Mama when she didn't write. Papa does most of the writing. I'm still getting a chuckle from his account of "The Cop Got Us." And I do enjoy Papa's letters too, but wanted to hear from Mama to know she was okay. Jeanne seems to have all her time occupied, and so I shall write to Glenn to find out about her. It is cold upstairs to sit and type, and so I shall have to find some means of moving my writing downstairs now that colder weather has hit us. I dread the winter not so much for myself, as we have a nice house with lots of the luxuries of a new house, but for the folks, chasing the stork, in the cold weather, as well as midnight runs to the hospitals, and all the trials I know that they have to meet. Oh, yes, Elizabeth and G-Mom came up yesterday with the 2 babies for the first time since before the baby was born. Little Marguerite is a very good-natured little baby and is growing nicely, coos and gurgles at anyone who invites it. Elizabeth is still big and fat, but I should talk. So am I. Which brings me around again to my plea for some Dexedrine, so that I can try to lose it again. When Louis starts making cracks about his fat mama, it is time I got my determination to work and lost some excess baggage. Must stop now. Every day write. Love to all. Sweetie. I'm enclosing a letter to Glenn, which I suggest you read first. And, if you decide, you may or may not give it to him as you see fit. But do write, will you?
So what I noticed first in this reading this letter is how she says, I shall have to cut this short, blah, 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 and goes on for 3 more paragraphs.
Right.
This is such a Midwestern goodbye. It just, it's in letter form. It's like, well, I guess I better get going, but we better talk for 20 more minutes before I go. Oh, and then, like, do you ever do those, like, those goodbyes where it just takes forever? You're saying goodbye to family, gotta think about it, this guy's saying goodbye to that. That hit me first.
The handwritten note at the end, because while we're reminded that this is a carbon copy where the circular's going around, she's splitting them off, and after she splits them off, this is the version that goes to Jeanne, and she's writing to Jeanne, I've got something to write, but you decide if you're going to give it to him. So we know something's going on here about an issue that she's going to address. We don't know what Sweetie wrote to Jeanne, but something to keep in mind for the stuff that comes up at the end of this episode today. There's some sort of little tension that's building in the air, and you can sense it right from that line, which is, why would Sweetie say, hey, I'm not sure if you want Glenn to read this? Dun dun dun, something's going on. We'll get to it a little more at the end of this episode. It's going to be largely unresolved for a little bit here. But Jamie, that leads us to the most exciting part of today's episode, potentially. Chester's been building this garage.
He's been building a garage.
He has been. Newsflash to everybody in the podcast. The garage saga is about to be pretty much concluded here in the most Chester way, I would say. It seems to be just a distinctly Dr. Demaree way of doing things. And this is super special because it's so different from every other letter that I've encountered in the collection. And just as I think Jamie indicated earlier, I don't know how this one got to the collection. I suppose how it did. And it's amazing that it survived. It really is like stunning that this document does survive. So for I think this is the first time we'll ever do this on the YouTube video. When this letter starts to be read, I'm going to be putting the letter on the screen to you, the viewer, so that you can see it as it's read. And you'll know why that's being done by the end. We'll just put it that way. Yeah, I think.
And the most probably amazing part of this, one of the most amazing parts, is this is written on the same exact day as the letter that we just read from Sweetie.
Yep.
Lacona, Iowa, November 17, 1950. This building was put up in the fall of 1950. Owing to the shortage of labor and unreliability of haulers, and to a certain extent, we got at the masonry rather too late, and we fear it will not be finished, roofed, this winter, except as we work at it piecemeal on warm days. The masonry was done by one Ben Williams, a more unreliable and temperamental man ever pretended to work. The footing was dug by members of my family, myself, and one or two outsiders, as Ray Hordman, a common laborer, and his son, Clyde, a stir bug. He promised to do the work for me, but on the excuse of a sore, rheumatic shoulder, tried every way he could to get out of it. But I finally went to Milo, where he was staying with his son Curtis, and got him to come down, promising to strap his shoulder, and by giving 10 grams of aspirin 3 times a day to keep the pain down, he started in. None of his folks, Crawford's, expectant to finish the job for me. I expect this building to stand for at least 50 or 100 years, and I hope if it is demolished, someone will find this note in the bottle I am depositing, will read of this and know the travails of a homeowner in getting his garage built. Though I am 64 years old and not very strong, I did the main work using Van Lee's mixer, putting in the 25-ton footing. I made all of the mortar, which the blocks were laid. I had to do this because I could get no reliable help to do it. Williams allows me $1.50 an hour to help him. I, as many of my patients, as prescribed to come in the evening after work. My good wife, Laura, helped me much. Chester Demaree, M.D.
So,
Yep.
Chester
Yep.
put a note in a bottle and built it into his garage.
Yes, he did.
And he built that into that garage.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so how did it get here?
How did it get here? I have a theory
what do you think?
on how it got here. And I'm going to hold up the letter so people can see this. Usually, let's talk about width of envelopes at the time. Let's assume by some way he ultimately didn't put it in a bottle and it just got sent around. I don't think that's the case. The letter's too wide to fit a standard envelope at the time. There's no creasing vertically through it. There's curling at the top and a fold in the middle, which means I think this literally was put in a bottle and buried into the foundation of the garage. And I think what happened is after the Demarees were gone, and the house did fall into disrepair when my dad saw it on visit out there. The house was falling apart. The garage, no doubt, came down. The people who owned the property after the Demarees left was the Butler family across the street. And they maintained strong relationships to this day. They still remember the Demarees very fondly. They maintained a strong relationship with Jeanne. Jeanne had all of these letters in her collection. So I think what happened is when they took down the garage, they found the letter in the bottle, probably had a really good laugh, remembering Dr. Demaree, and then thought to themselves, who's the best person to get this letter to? And I have no doubt that they gave it to Jeanne, and that's how it survives in the collection today. The greatest irony of this letter is Chester addresses it to nobody, because he doesn't know who's going to pick up the letter. You know, the only time I've heard about a letter in a bottle is the people like put a letter in the bottle and they throw it out in the ocean kind of thing, not buried in the foundation by any means. So the reason I wanted to put this on the screen for people to see is because the letter is addressed to you, the listener. It's addressed to one stranger. He's hoping one stranger finds this and understands what happened. And I think the greatest thing is, in this surviving the collection, it's going to get to more than just one stranger. It gets to everybody. And we hear the most amazing account of a garage being built, of a very mundane item. And this, we haven't even talked about the content of what he writes here, which he's naming names. He's taking no prisoners.
He is naming names. He is done. He was so very mad. And we know that Bill was supposed to be helping him out with the garage. Right. Glenn, because we know Sweetie like wrote Glenn and said, thank you for helping dig and dig and dig and dig and dig.
Yep, but this is different.
He got mad and he didn't have Facebook.
Yep.
So he couldn't post to the community, the local community pages, how Ben Williams, Mr. Ben Williams, I would like to like say that, Ben Williams, one more time.
I'd point this out. I don't know who added the red line. Was that Chester or was that Jeanne? But it's the only line underlined and circled in the letter is the line about Ben Williams, where he says that line, the most unreliable and what was the word? It's hard to see. Now everybody's going to have fun decoding Chester's writing, because I would stare at this. A temperamental man ever pretended to work, and it's highlighted. And I think that's Dr. Demaree being like, let me just point out, this is the point. And then he's like, Ben Williams deigns to pay him to do some of the work he's supposed to be doing. He's getting that $1.50. He has to move around some of the schedules and things. He signs the letter with his typical doctor's signature. And at least he has at least one big thing is he gives some credit to Laura. My good wife, Laura, helped me.
He put that in there too. But he must have been big mad.
Oh, crazy mad. He has this new Ford. He's trying to take care of his new car. We heard about the new car. That's why they're building the garage. I love everything about this. It must have been off of like a notepad, because the bottom of the letter has 2 holes. Like he ripped it out and he's like, I'm just going to do this and put this in this bottle. But yeah, this is the gift to all of our listeners, because this letter was not addressed to anybody in the family specifically. This is addressed to everybody, you know? And so this is something that is now out there in the world once this airs. And Chester is out there smiling somewhere. We know he's smiling because
he feels vindicated.
More than he could have hoped for, that this gets to more than just the one person that finds it in the bottle. And I have this whole theory in my head that it was the Butlers that did it. And I'm in contact with some of the Butler family, so I'm going to let them know about this. Maybe they have a story. They might remember finding this. It seems like something people talk about. Like, remember when we found that letter in the bottle? So I'm going to see if there is any story that survives.
It must have been so long ago too. It's just, I just really truly love the fact that Sweetie was typing and he was over sitting at his desk. I'm going to let everybody know. Because like, seriously, I mean, I'm sure he's, talking, like told people, but like he was like, he shoved it in there. I'm assuming it was a cinder block and he put it in there, covered it with stuff. I don't know. But I hope it made him feel better.
I think it did. And
it makes me feel better.
Gonna delight people for years to come. So yeah,
that was hilarious. Oh, I aspire to that level, sir. Aspire. However, we do have something going on, and it's like you have like mentioned it, and you can kind of feel it in the letters. There's something going on between Sweetie and Jeanne.
Yep.
Jeanne is distracted. She's got her Glenn now. There's a thing going on. And so these last pieces of correspondence are only to Jeanne.
County Line Road, Hatboro, Pennsylvania, November 20th, 1950. Dear Jeanne, after much delay, I'm sending off by insured parcel the 2 pair of pants for you to exchange for Louis. I'm also sending along 2 pair of nylons as a poor birthday present for you. I apologize for the delay, the fact that they are not gift-wrapped even, and for their being such a commonplace gift. I could not find suitable wrappings here, and decided more is better than such poor ones. Maybe next time I can do a better job of selecting something for you. Anyway, our love goes with it. and so I hope you'll not feel too slighted this time. I suppose there will be a letter from you today. I looked for one on Saturday from you, and possibly a card from Sister, but since there was nothing then, I feel quite sure there will be something today. Have been hoping for an answer to the letter I wrote you, and asked all the questions in. I have been putting off my house cleaning, thinking I'd hear from you, saying if you were coming, or if Glenn would come too. I guess we'll have to wait to find out, but I'm sure dying to know your plans. Today is Lou's day off, and I'm not sure what we'll do. I've been having some cold, and guess now Lou and Louis will be taking it. Lou worked yesterday, so Louis and I just lazed around, looking at TV and doing little. I didn't even bake myself a cake. Lou got me a little necklace and earrings to match, and a box of candy for my birthday. Candy! And I'm already so ashamed of how fat I am, which brings me back to my plea for Dexedrine. I decided last night to go on a diet and just ate salad for supper, but before the night was over I chomped pretzels with the boys. I must have Dexedrine before I can really do anything seriously along the diet. Tuesday, the old man in Doylestown has his 82nd birthday, and since I baked the little old lady one, Lou says I must bake him one too. Well, I'll get a slice of that, so I'll have some cake after all. I had a letter from Mama several days ago that I hurried up and answered, and a card from Daddy telling of the garage. He seemed quite put out with Bill for helping to lay on a few blocks and then quitting. It sounded as though you and Glenn have helped more than Bill has, and I was counting on Bill to really lend a hand. I hear the boys stirring, and guess I'd better be putting the coffee on, or we'll all be under each other's feet and no breakfast. As late as it is, and I know it's late, we wish you a happy birthday and sleek legs. Hope they're okay all the way. Hello to Glenn. Love, Sweetie, Lou, and Louis.
Doesn't
Yeah.
it seem like she's being a little short?
Mm-hmm. Like, come on, Jeanne. What are we doing here? Are you visiting? We need to talk. The last thing we knew from, 3 days earlier, she'd said, you decide if you want to give this to Glenn. We don't know what happened, but now here's this letter going like, well, and radio silence from Jeanne, at least up to this point. So she's not too sure what's going on, and it is still conversational, but the tension continues with what's happening. Jamie, I think we should just dive in and see what happens next.
Oh, yeah.
November 22nd, 1950. Dear Jeanne, I see nothing to do but just give up and take my chances on getting a letter, or else you're walking in on us. I thought sure you'd sit right down and answer that first letter, or else the second one. No doubt now that I'm ready to drop dead, there will be a letter from you this morning. If not, you drop dead instead. Sister wrote, I'm lucky somebody does, that you were having Thanksgiving dinner at your house. Marguerite and Joe aren't coming over this year, and so we aren't having a big dinner. Lou has the day off, but guess we'll just stay home. We went to Doylestown last night to the old people, to a big turkey dinner, to celebrate the old gent's birthday, mine, and Thanksgiving too. She got the dinner herself, which was a real undertaking for a frail little 90-year-old. And she didn't spare a thing either. Happy Thanksgiving, and love from us three. Sweetie.
She told Jeanne to drop dead.
Yeah, and then she
I just want to put that there.
Gives the burn, and it's like, well, Sister wrote me a little something.
Ooh, at least somebody does.
Uh-oh.
But, however, too, the nice little thing that was from this letter was they went and had a Thanksgiving with the old couple, or well, the older. That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I bet you that's the first Thanksgiving that they've had with somebody else for a little while now.
She must be such a nice old lady,
She must be. She sounds like incredible. I mean, she's like 90 and she's like talking to Lou.
Went to all this effort. What a nice, kind old lady.
I hope we hear more from her.
Same. I hope so as well. But we have this major problem.
We have a major problem. And you know what? I'm totally fine with just hopping into the next letter, which is a day later.
November 23rd, 1950. Dear Jeanne, every day, in every way, I'm getting madder and madder. Pretty soon I won't even send cards. I'm very glad that you're having the clan for Thanksgiving, and I know they will all enjoy your fine dinner. Will Glenn also be there? I'm sure it will be more fun for Mama than to get the dinner herself. We aren't having a big dinner today. I bought steak for Swiss steak, but believe we'll save it as G-Mom Graham is coming up on Friday for a few days away from babies and diapers. Lou is off today, Thanksgiving, works Friday, and will be off Saturday and Sunday to help entertain her and enjoy her visit. She really needs more than just a few days, but she can't stay away long enough to get a good rest. We're going to see the big gimbal parade on TV this morning, rather than fight crowds in cold. Happy Thanksgiving Day to all of you. And love, in spite of your not writing. Sweetie.
Jeanne. Jeanne, like, what the heck?
Matter. Yeah, Jeanne, what are you doing? What are you doing here? It's Thanksgiving. Jeanne, you're supposed to be talking to your family. What is happening? So she's trying to be like, okay, I'll just do a little small talk, Thanksgiving dinner, we're gonna watch the parade. Jeanne, what is happening? We have one more piece of correspondence for today's episode, Jamie. Let's see what happens. Thursday, November 30th, 1950. Dear Jeanne, received your letter and will try to answer it soon. I've been putting off house cleaning till you wrote you were coming, and now I doubt if I do it at all. Must do some. I suppose you heard about our storm. I'm going to write a letter about it soon, so shall not include details here. I don't mind saying I'm very disappointed in your inclination to dilly-dally along R.E. the singing duo, and wonder who can be called more stupid, you or him. However, I'm determined I shall not say more, after I've commented on your last letter, a few comments on that, and then I've washed my hands of the idea. We'll write in a day or two after I get some navy socks darned. Love, Sweetie.
She called her stupid.
She got a letter. She's going to write a response. Something is absolutely going on here that is really upsetting Sweetie at this point.
Well, and it seems that Jeanne was supposed to be going out there. She was going to clean the house and get it all ready for her to come out. We know Jean's been there once and nobody else has.
Yep.
Like Frank hasn't come. Like Florence and Sister and even Chester and Laura. Her mom and dad haven't come out yet. And how long has she been out there?
I mean, technically, since Collingdale, so 46. She's had those visits. She spent the year back in Lacona when Lou was in the Merchant Marine. And then that past summer, she saw Jeanne and Glenn for 3-4 weeks, when she went out to Lacona with Lou. So there have been a little bit of time. There has been a little bit of time where she spent time out there, but nobody has visited her in Pennsylvania yet. No, Jeanne did come out once. Actually,
but that was earlier.
It was a while. It was 47, 46.
That was a long time
It's been
ago.
years. It's getting upsetting at this point. It really is that no one.
Honestly, she kind of has a point because it's 1950. This means that in 4 years, Jean's the only person who's ever come out. She did it earlier. And she was supposed to come out again, and then she didn't. And I wonder why that is.
Stuff's going on. There's so much happening in the storyline right now. The question the audience, I think, has to have is, what is going on here between Jeanne and Sweetie? We are going to resolve that very soon, but not in the next episode. We're not going to get that resolution. She drops a line, and this is the teaser for episode, I think this is episode 87 that we're heading into. She drops this line and she says, I'm sure you've heard about the storm. So the setup for the next episode is a mega letter. There's only one letter in that episode coming up. And that episode is going to be called Remember the Good Old Days, because usually, as people can have seen, I'm sure, I take a line from the letters and it becomes the title of the episode. Not the case in this one. She titles the letter herself as a story. She's going to tell us a story. We're going to get that episode December 21st, 2025 here. So you're going to get Sweetie's story to you for Christmas. That's the Christmas present for everybody else. But we're going to be lingering with this tension with Jeanne still for a bit to come here as we head into the last part of season 2. All that being said, I do want to catch up the history for a moment here with what's going on as we get through November of 1950. A couple things to mention. On the Korean War stage, there's a concern that starts to really be major heading into mid-October of 1950. So much so that there's something called the Wake Island Conference that happens. President Truman wants to check in with his general, MacArthur, about what's going on. And he's starting to get concerned that China is going to get involved on the side of the North Koreans. MacArthur refuses to come back to the United States to talk to President Truman. So they have to go to Wake Island, and the two meet up at this. Right. It's sort of like MacArthur's doing his own thing. He's basically like, I'm in charge of what's happening, so much so that the president has to leave and go visit him. This is never a good sign when like your general is like not. There's a moment between Lincoln and McClellan of this in the Civil War where like McClellan doesn't want to do something, and Lincoln has the famous line that says, General McClellan, if you're not going to use your army, might I borrow it? We're starting to get that kind of tension point, a little parallel in history there. But yeah, so he goes out there, and the thing is, they're worried that China is going to intervene on the part of the North Koreans. China's made it pretty clear. If the UN forces cross that 38th parallel, that's it. They're getting involved. And they do.
And they do. I was going to say, didn't they they took the North Korean capital?
I don't know if they retook the North Pyongyang just yet, but they head across the border because I think it was the Yazoo River is on the border here between China. They share that border with Korea. And Chinese forces, even though MacArthur was more dismissive of this, are just like, we're going in. On November 1st, they start to fight UN forces in North Korea. And the Russians seeing this, the Soviets seeing this, coming in are like, oh, okay, so they start to give more air support to the North Korean forces. So now we're getting into even more of a tangle. It's not just the UN forces fighting directly North Korean forces. It's like there's all these other parties coming in on the other side, and that's what's going to make this war even trickier with what's happening. And you've got, of course, like the UN. We heard about the Soviet secretary saying things that we didn't been watching that. All these tensions are reaching to a point, but we have to keep in mind that like Truman was concerned to the point where he leaves the United States, goes to Wake Island to talk in person with his general to be like, hey, you know, we need to have conversations about this. So that's basically where things are October, November of 1950. But what I wanted to do is I thought, okay, well, November 1st, the Chinese attack the UN forces. So I was like, let me do what I usually do, which is let me go to the newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer. This was front page news. So I just want to look at it. So I see, as I'm looking into this newspaper, you can see all the block lettering. And I was like, oh, something big happened, because you can see if it's like a big paper. I zoom into what happened on the paper, and I'm like, that's not about the Chinese going into North Korea. And I read the headline. I'm like, I have not really heard about this one. And immediately I thought to myself, this has got to be in the McCullough book. And it is. So, yeah. Jamie, in the David McCullough. So for everybody who's new to this podcast, this is pretty much required reading of the time. Truman by David McCullough, the best account ever. And I'm going to tell you what page to go to here. We're going to get a little excerpt. So people should check out this book. And if you're following along, page 809.
809. Okay.
This is a long book, so. But my goodness, what an amazing, amazing text. What happens is Truman's coming back from Wake Island Conference. And when he returns, he goes back to the Blair House. And we have to remind ourselves that the White House is under renovation at this point.
Oh, yeah. That's something that's really cool. So he's at the Blair House.
He's at the Blair House. That's where he's staying.
The White House is like desperate need of repair.
It's
a huge overhaul. Okay.
Yeah. So he's at Blair House. And then all of a sudden we get to midday of Wednesday, November 1st, and we get into the evening. So if we go back to page actually 808, it says, at midday on Wednesday, November 1st, 1950, 2 weeks after the Wake Island Conference, Truman returns to the Blair House at the end of an extremely disquieting morning. And a little further along, it says, the day in Washington was unseasonably hot, the hottest November day on record, 85 degrees in the shade along Pennsylvania Avenue. So really warm day for late fall. Truman joined Bess, that's his wife, and Madge Wallace for a quiet lunch, then went upstairs for a nap. At 2:50, he was scheduled to leave for Arlington Cemetery to speak at the unveiling of a statue of British Field Marshal Sir John Dill, a member of the Combined Chiefs of Staff during World War II, who had died in Washington in 1944 as a result of his wartime service. So Truman goes upstairs in the Blair House to go take a nap. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. And it says there's some police officers posted outside the Blair House in downtown D.C. It says outside, the 3 White House police were posted, all sweltering in winter uniforms.
Poor thing.
Except for the heat. The afternoon was passing like any other. People strolled by beneath the president's window. Streetcars and automobiles moved along in the bright sun of the avenue. Autumn leaves floated down from the trees. So it talks about how the guards go into a rotation. No change there. And we get this firsthand account. In the guard booth up the sidewalk to the right was Private Leslie Caufelt, a 4th White House policeman, Joseph Downs, who had just been relieved by Caufelt on this rotation that's happening with these guards, was starting for the basement door when 2 slim, neatly dressed men approached the Blair House from opposite directions, coming along the sidewalk with the other pedestrians. The time was 2:19 in the afternoon. The 2 looked so subdued and unobtrusive in their dark suits and hats that a clerk in the hotel near Union Station, where they stayed the night before, had mistaken them for divinity students. The man approaching from the west toward Leslie Caufelt's booth was Griselda Torresola. He was 25 years old. The other coming from the east was Oscar Colazzo, who was 36. They were both from New York, both Puerto Ricans and fanatic Puerto Rican nationalists. To bring attention to their cause, they had decided to kill the president.
What?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Torresola was armed with a German Luger. Colazzo, who had never fired a pistol before, carried a German Walter P-38. Between them, they had 69 rounds of ammunition. Torresola paused at the window of Caufelt's booth and began saying something in a loud voice, apparently in an effort to divert attention from his partner, Colazzo, who by then had walked directly past the other booth, past Davidson and Boring, they're the other officers, and was heading straight for the Blair House stoop, where Donald Birdsall had his head turned, looking west toward Caufelt, so here are the other officers on duty. Birdsall would remember hearing a faint but unmistakable metallic click. Whirling about, he saw Colazzo just 8 or 10 feet away, pointing the P-38 at him and trying to fire. The gun went off as Birdsall grabbed for his own pistol. Birdsall was hit in the right leg, but amazingly, instead of shooting back, and despite his leg, he had the presence of mind to run out into Pennsylvania Avenue to draw the fire away from the president's quarters. As he moved, Colazzo pivoted and kept firing, hitting him again. Birdsall crumpled by the streetcar tracks, but turned on one knee and shot back. By now, gunfire was exploding on all sides. Torresola had stepped to the open door of the West Century booth and opened up on Caufelt point blank. With bullets ripping his chest and stomach, Caufelt went down and began slowly to bleed to death. Torresola spun and fired at Joseph Downs, the White House policeman at the basement door, hitting him 3 times. Downs somehow struggled through the door, yelling for help. It all happened so rapidly. I didn't really know what the hell was going on, Floyd Boring remembered. There were screams, shouting, people everywhere were running for cover. The noise of gunfire was terrifying. 27 shots in 2 minutes. Boring and Davidson opened fire on Colazzo. A bullet clipped his ear, another his hat. With his second shot, Boring hit him in the chest, and Colazzo went face down on the sidewalk, legs splayed out beside the front step, his hat still on. Torresola, meantime, had wheeled and fired at Birdsall, out by the streetcar tracks. Struck now in his good leg, Birdsall pitched forward, yet kept firing. His pistol braced on the pavement at arm's length. Then the dying Leslie Caufelt somehow got hold of his own pistol and brought Torresola down with a single shot through the head. With that, suddenly it was over, and for a few seconds strangely silent. Then people came running from every direction, more police, photographers, Secret Service agents, and reporters from the White House, a crowd of hundreds. In the front hall, Agent Stout, who had rushed to the gun cabinet in the usher's office, stood ready now at the front door with a Thompson submachine gun. J.B. West, stepping into the hall, saw the First Lady on the stairway. What was happening, she asked. There had been a shooting, West said. He remembered her gazing at him, eyes wide, then hurrying back up the stairs. Truman, in the roar of gunfire, had jumped from his bed and rushed to the window. Seeing him, someone on the sidewalk had shouted, get back, until he moved away. Ambulances nosed through the crowd outside. A rumor spread that the president had been murdered. Traffic backed up for blocks in every direction. Birdsall lay motionless in the street, blood flowing onto the pavement from both legs. Caufelt was sprawled on his back beside his sentry box. Downs, who had been dragged to a basement room, was asking for a priest. Torrisola was dead, doubled in a heap beneath a boxwood hedge. Colazzo was still alive. Truman quickly dressed and came downstairs. Looking out from the first floor, he could see a cluster of police bending over Colazzo at the front stoop, and Charlie Ross making his way through the police and up the steps. Would the president still be going to Arlington? Why, of course, Truman said. Massive story of an assassination attempt on President Truman. So when I went to the papers to go see the news about China attacking the UN forces, instead, I'll show you what the front page showed on November 1st of 1950. And there's no way that Sweetie didn't see this paper. And here we go. Assassination attempt on Harry Truman. It's not a story I recall. In fact, I've played in the musical Assassins by Stephen Sondheim, and it covers the attempted assassinations of Reagan and Ford and even Roosevelt. This one's never covered even in the show.
That's so weird, because you said
right?
It was all of the assassination attempts, and this was an assassination. Well, I guess maybe because I don't know, they didn't ever really get close to him.
They got kind of scary close, though, when you think about it. I mean, he's looking out his window. If he had looked out his window, like, wrong place, wrong time, like, oof, this could have been really, really, really bad.
But that one guy, I don't think he even knew how to fire his gun very well.
Right. Yeah.
Like, the one guy was like, but anyway, you're right. Yeah, like, I can't believe that wasn't, so that was the major story of the day.
Had to be.
Then we see Chinese Red Rip GI Frank near border. So this is like the only part of the war that you see on this one.
So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Here's the crowd. This is the Blair House. Wow. It says, and the reason I want to go to McCullough is because there's really only a blurb here. Everybody's in shock. A crowd gathered at the Blair House, Washington yesterday after 2 Puerto Rican assassins tried to blast their way in to kill President Truman. One of the gunmen was killed and the other wounded. Lower photo. A guard died of the gunman's bullets and 2 others were hit. President Truman, inside the house at the time, was unharmed. These are villains. This is probably as graphic as we'd ever get in the podcast, but that's the assassins taken out, and they have it right on the front page of the paper there.
They
Can't
do.
really see too much, but I mean, that's that, and it notes the 2 gunmen. And then if
with his hat still on.
Yeah, with his hat still on. That's why I think
I'm telling you, McCullough, he just knows.
McCullough, it won a Pulitzer for a reason, the Truman book. And then we get here a little bit of the information. What's amazing is it says he was taking a nap. Here at the very bottom, it says, thus Mr. Truman escaped the fate of Presidents Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley, because the 4th, of course, Kennedy. We haven't gotten to that time period yet. All of whom died of assassins' bullets. Mr. Truman was taking a nap in his underwear. Getting a rest before time to go to Arlington Cemetery to help dedicate the monument. And and it just mentions everything that was going on. But you can imagine getting this paper first thing in the morning at the time. This plot
that's
here.
Crazy.
Yep. So for the Philadelphia Inquirer. So when I went to this, I was like, oh, we have to talk about this. Oh my goodness. There's a huge plot here, and what a paper to wake up to in the morning when it gets delivered by the mailman, or the newspaper man, whoever's dropping off the paper at the time, there in Hatboro. So, that's a story. That's a story. But it also speaks to just how easy it was to access the president in those days.
Right.
That you could just basically get that close to the president. Which clearly, I think after Kennedy in 1963, then I think they have to increase security more and more and more and more. You could go up and meet with Lincoln. McKinley, when he was killed, that was at the World's Fair. It was point blank with McKinley. He was up, he was greeting people, a person just walked up to him and shot him. That's how McKinley died. The assassin being Cholgosh. That's the name. I know this. Okay, and if people are like, she's studying all the assassins, look, I've played this musical a lot. So, I know all the names.
Some people don't know about that musical. Yeah. The musical about the assassination, the assassin. Some people don't know about it. So, because I never heard about it until you.
It's a fascinating show. But that's how McKinley was killed, if people are wondering. Because I think people know about Lincoln, but Bill McKinley was killed at the World's Fair in Buffalo, New York, and was shot point blank. the one who killed Garfield, I think there was just something actually, I think there was a show just made about him. That was Charles Guiteau, who was the assassin for Garfield. He walks up to him at the train station, and Guiteau was not, nobody who thinks it's a good idea to do this is going to be right in the mind, but he asks President Garfield if he can be the ambassador to France. Like, just walk up and say, I want to be the ambassador to France. Garfield laughs and he repeats the request. Garfield and his guys laugh again. He shoots him point blank. So that's those three. But this is just not covered at all. So these are new names and what was going on here. But again, just being able to walk up to the Blair House, because the White House is under renovation. You don't have that lawn. Like there's a sidewalk, and then he's just upstairs. Truman looks out the window, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, get back. 27 shots ring out into the street. It's like a busy area. Everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. And at the end of it, we have some heroes, obviously, that saved the president here. And then we have, his wife was coming down the stairs. Bess is coming down the stairs seeing this. And at the end of it, then Truman's just like, Charlie Ross, you going to go to Arlington? He's like, yep.
Of course.
That was Truman. So, but what a story. So I wanted to cover that because I think it's just, it just needs to be talked about. So.
Yeah. This has been some fascinating stories in this podcast.
Right.
in this episode of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but that is where we have to end it today.
That is. And we will pick up next week with what happened with the storm, with Sweetie's story to you, the listener, titled, Remember the Good Old Days.